In here this afternoon, the president of the Brazilian Association of Animal Protein, Ricardo Santin, is urging Brazil and South Africa to deepen cooperation on protein imports and bolster food security by adopting science-based veterinary systems. He made the call at the association's high-level bilateral seminar on protein food security held in Pretoria, South Africa. Channel Africa's business reporter Innocent Samosa has more.
It is believed that South Africa relies on imported poultry and pork imports to keep prices stable and ensure affordable protein for millions of households. When diseases such as foot and mouth disease or bird flu emerge, government decisions directly influence food availability, price stability, and trade continuity. Meanwhile, the president of the Brazilian Association of Animal Protein, Ricardo Santin, shares his view on how regionalization can improve stable meat trade.
Regionalization can keep the trading flow. It means that in one part, if you have one state or one county with disease, you can keep the rest of the country exporting, and these don't disrupt the trade flow, and you can keep in the supply of the local industry stable for don't to stop to produce the products that came from Brazil.
But in what way can Brazil assist South Africa in improving its animal disease surveillance, prevention and response capabilities to ensure safer and more resilient food systems?
In this seminar, we showed what Brazil made in preventing and controlling the foot and mouth disease. We have also what he made to prevent the avian influenza. Brazil has a very good support and can exchange technologies and exchange procedures with South Africa to help the local industry to prevent and avoid the avian influenza in their own production.
He says the association's plan is to help curb rising food prices.
When we have the regionalization, we avoid inflation of food. We faced this, unfortunately, when South Africa banned Brazil, the total country, when we have avian influenza in the first case in Brazil. What happened with the price of the sausages, the Viennas and the Polonies that use MDM that is exported from Brazil to the local processors? It skyrocketed the price. And this, when you have the regionalization, we are keeping the price affordable for the people.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg.
Africa means business. Tune into Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni for the future of the African economy. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It has gone exactly 10 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time as we turn the spotlight now on the International Monetary Fund. They say the South African economy is showing resilience but remains constrained by weak growth, rising debt and slow structural reform. While financial indicators have improved and key reforms are currently underway, the IMF, which has already concluded an assessment of the country's economic trajectory, warns that without credible fiscal consolidation, stronger institutions and faster execution of electricity, logistics and governance reforms, South Africa risks prolonged stagnation as well as continued social stress. For more on this, we joined on the line by Dr. Tafadzwa Ruziwe, postdoctoral researcher in international affairs at UFS International Office. Doctor, very good afternoon to you. Good to have you with us on Africa in Business.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to your listeners and your viewers.
So when we look at South Africa over the past 2 consecutive years, the country has achieved a primary surplus. Do you think, do you think that this fiscal consolidation can be designed to protect growth and social spending?
Good afternoon again. Fiscal consolidation and growth are not two very friendly terms. They're actually the opposite of each other. Much of the design of the South African economy is based on it having lots of government investment. So the fiscal consolidation path, which is going to take debt from 78% of GDP to 70 or 60, which are the preferred parameters, implies massive cuts in government investment. And when you cut government investment, you cannot get growth. So the path for fiscal consolidation, if South Africa is going to go on a path of fiscal consolidation, there can be very little to no growth that can be expected over the forecast period for which these policy recommendations are being pursued.
Now, when we're looking at these policy recommendations that you're highlighting, one of them is the suggestion from the IMF for a medium-term debt ceiling of 70% of GDP. Is this feasible?
In South Africa, the problem that is there is that the economics on which the fiscal framework is based treats the South African government as a household, right? Like a household has to earn the money that it spends, and then it has got a tight budget which it has to consolidate. But in reality, South Africa is a sovereign state which issues its own currency, and as long as there are resources like unemployed people and unprocessed minerals and limited numbers of civil servants who are providing services in clinics or hospitals and other government entities, so long that gap exists, there is space for the South African government to invest to improve the standards of living in South Africa before inflation becomes a problem. So in that direction, the economics of treating the South African government as a household are counterproductive to and antithetical to the notion of a sovereign South African state. So the economics we have right now are not for a sovereign South African state. They are for a vassal state which cannot spend and invest as it wishes. But since independence, 1994, South Africa is before that. South Africa is a sovereign and independent state. Therefore, its fiscal capacity can be utilized to mobilize all the domestic resources that are available for it to pursue a growth path that can help it to achieve its growth goals. So the economic ideology, some call it the Washington Consensus, it really needs to be re-examined with respect to the view of the South African state as a sovereign state.
And how much fiscal space could realistically be created by the improvement of procurement? For example, reduction of waste, as well as the rationalizing of the wage bill?
Those are two very important areas for the rationalization of the wage bill. Because currently the problem in South Africa is that the two evils that surround the budget process are austerity and corruption. So the last time we had the reasonable fiscal processes with reduced corruption was under the Thabo Mbeki era, where we saw efficiency in government spending, a well-managed wage bill, reduction in waste, and the economy was growing. So I foresee there being massive savings or a massive fiscal space that can be liberated, especially if there can be clarity and controls, especially on the wage bill. There are ghost workers and things like that. And then on the investment side, there is a need for rationalization of the tender processes to make sure that they deliver on the money that is put there. So if we can get the wage bill can be cleared, the wage list, as it were, can be cleared, and if there can be a clear sight from investment into the implementation of infrastructure, I foresee there being massive efficiencies and growth that can be liberated from such endeavors in concurrence with the IMF.
I'm still a little deeper on the worker situation, and if you've perhaps given any thought as to how South Africa can balance worker protection with job creation, especially for small and medium enterprises as well as the youth. There's the issue of labour reforms as well. That keeps coming up. And how much of an impediment is this to actual job creation?
So speaking from labor reforms, the difficulty with labor reforms is that if you look closely at the statement from the IMF and the design of the economy currently, it is an export-led economy. There is very limited mobilization of domestic resources. We are not digging coal and iron and steel for South African production, but we are coal is being dug and raw materials are being exported for processing elsewhere. So when the economics speak for labor market and product market efficiencies, is simply that wages should become lower for more people to be employed. And given South Africa's situation on unemployment, poverty, and inequality, I think there could be some difficulty there in saying maybe something like the minimum wage should be reduced even further, right? So I think that's a wall and around which a lot of negotiation will have to be made with respect to protecting the currently protected workers on a minimum wage versus trying to open more workers to come in by reducing the wage. So the investment and the investments and the efficiency of government spending would need to be rationed and tackling unemployment.
I'd like us to end off our conversation this afternoon, Doctor, with just your thoughts on the inflation targets. That has now shifted to 3%, and that's been widely welcomed, at least by business. Are there any negative implications that might arise from this, and particularly in a supply-constrained economy such as the one we have?
The World Bank's own reports have said that, have indicated that if the trade unions do not protest the wage the wage suppression that is coming from inflation targeting, the economy might lose 0.5% growth. But if the unions have a problem with the wage reductions that are being penciled in because of the inflation target, then the economy might lose up to about 2% of GDP. So when the inflation target was floated, there was no discussion that there might be no growth in South Africa for the next 3 years because of the inflation target that has been reduced. Of course, there's the narrative on green shoots and the like, but if that inflation target we expect the World Bank itself, I think it's the IMF itself, says that there's about a 0.5 to 2% GDP contraction that can be expected just from adopting the inflation target. So I don't know. It ends up becoming a situation where SAB and National Treasury are being made to chase their own tail by being told to make an inflation target, look for better growth, but then the policy that they are implementing of tightening the policy, the inflation target is a growth killing, policy. So more, I believe that there needs to be more rationalization and more open discussion about the IMF, the World Bank, National Treasury, and SAP, and the generality of people who could contribute to economic policy in South Africa as it stands. Yeah.
Dr. Tafadzwa Rusive, thank you so much for your insight this afternoon as we take a look at the South African growth rate, some of the fiscal challenges and constraints and policies that the country has in place, with the International Monetary Fund saying that the economy is showing resilience, but it does remain constrained, and various factors being highlighted there. Thank you very much, Dr. Tafadzwa Rusive, a postdoctoral researcher in international affairs at UFS International Office.
The Morning Switch Weekend with the Shy Guy.
There's a Ugandan lawmaker. His name is Atkins Katusabe, who speaks with an American accent in Parliament. So the parliamentarians have complained that we don't understand what you are saying.
Listen to him. Come on.
Mr. Speaker, I think this is a disaster that could cause an extinction of our entire community.
Going to procedure.
Mr. Speaker, the English that is trying to put this matter here is confusing a number of us and making us miss very serious issue. It needs to speak the common English of Uganda. The English is too much.
Need a piece of paper so that we'll be able to read. The English is too much. I picture him saying order, out of order.
Saturday and Sunday mornings belong to the Morning Switch. 3 to 6 a.m. Central African Time. From markets to innovation. From markets to innovation, Africa in Business with Thami Ngubeni covers it all. With Africa's future in focus, Channel Africa, the African perspective.
It has gone exactly 23 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African time. A newly released report shows that South Africa is a country still committed to democracy, but struggling with deep social challenges. This is contained in the 2025 South African Reconciliation Barometer conducted by the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation. The study also shows that trust in political parties and public institutions remains low. Thami Ngubeni compiled this report.
The 2025 South African Reconciliation Barometer, conducted by the Institute of Justice and Reconciliation, IJR, was conducted a year into the Government of National Unity, GNU, formed after the ruling African National Congress lost its majority in the 2024 elections. The survey serves as a critical resource for policymakers, civil society, government, and researchers by providing a nationally representative measure of citizens' attitudes towards national reconciliation, social cohesion, transformation, and democratic governance. Kate Lefko-Everett, the author of the report, says they have been conducting this report since 2003.
So the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation has been conducting the Reconciliation Barometer survey since 2003, and we have a really unique and interesting set of data over South Africa's period of political transition. This year, as you mentioned, we conducted our survey right at the point of 1 year of the GNU's first term in office. And what we did find is that the levels of distrust in government and lack of confidence in institutions that we found in 2023 unfortunately remain very high in 2025. However, I think this is a moment of opportunity, and the survey results do show a bit of patience and a kind of wait-and-see attitude towards the GNU, and it's an opportunity for real impact and change to happen.
Lefko-Everett says some of the findings include high levels of distrust by citizens in the national leadership and across the largest political parties.
We did find high levels of distrust in national leadership, in key public institutions, and also across the four largest political parties in the country. However, we did find some interesting variation in attitudes towards some of the key policy and legislative issues that have been on the GNU agenda. So we found, for example, moderate majority support for national health insurance, for the national dialogue process, and even for the Land Expropriation Act. So it seems like the public is more willing to kind of engage on policy and legislative issues, and there's some diversity of opinion, whereas the distrust levels are more universal.
She says the report looked at last year's lead up to the elections as there were expectations of some form of instability in the country.
So the report looks back on what was quite a difficult time in the lead up to the 2024 elections. There was expectations of potential political instability. There was anxiety about what the election results would bring. So part of the purpose of the report this year was to emphasize that we don't want to see those conditions of anxiety and instability going into the 2026-27 local government elections. At the same time, again, we found pervasive distrust and some challenges in terms of the current mood and confidence in leadership. So it's an important time to kind of lay the foundations for peaceful and stable elections going forward.
In response to the report, IJR fellow Professor Rajan Govender says the low voter turnout in South Africa is an indication of a maturing democracy.
So voter turnout, I mean, we always go back and compare to the watershed event of 1995, which is a bit unfair, really, because it was truly a watershed event. And we're not likely to attain those levels of voter participation and voter turnout ever again. We're 30 years down the line from 1995, and it may not seem like it, but our democracy is maturing.
Govender says it's still early days to look at the successes of the GNU, however says there's been a subtle shift in public perception on policies.
In terms of the Government of National Unity, my view is it's still too early to successfully assess how the GNU is doing. I think we can get more conclusive assessments as the GNU has more time to embed itself, and the different ministers are actually able to gain traction in their policy and their implementation work. But having said that, I would say two things. I think the results reflect a subtle shift in public perceptions away from politicians and more towards policies, and I think this is promising.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Thami Ngubeni in Johannesburg.
African enterprise meets global opportunity. Africa in Business on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 28 minutes after 4 p.m. Central African Time. Still under the spotlight this afternoon, we'll take a look at the Global Development Finance Conference Momentum 2025. It's kicked off in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. It is a 3-day conference organized by the National Development Fund, and we'll find out more about what their focus is this year and the global shift from aid to sustainable finance. That always is a very key topic that they will be discussing. We'll also, as the festive season approaches, but we were actually discussing the festive season is upon us because many people have already gone on vacation, and some financial experts say that the joy of festive spending often leads to January financial woes. So we'll be looking at how you can be emotionally savvy while you are still enjoying time spending with your friends, your loved ones during the festive season, making sure that come January you are not left destitute. Also, an interesting discussion that we'll be having in our APSA feature today, a look at stokvels. They certainly are buzzing with activity this time of the year. These are community-based savings and investment clubs. And I wonder if you have any in your area, wherever it is that you may be. In South Africa, they're called stokvels, but really what they are savings clubs, saving pools, investment clubs, community-based. And what do you call them in your particular area? Do send us your messages on X, YouTube and Facebook. At Facebook we are at Channel Africa, on X at Channel Africa 1, and on YouTube we are at Channel Africa 1, and Instagram you can use the very same handle too. It's gone exactly 4:30 p.m. Central African Time. Let's head over now to the markets desk where Buntle Headbush is standing by with your latest market indicators.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thanks, Thami. Good afternoon. And our final look at the indicators this afternoon. $1 is trading at 17 Rand 4 cents in South Africa. In Botswana, it's trading at 13 Pula 18. Namibia at 17 Namibian dollars and 4. The Zambian kwacha is trading at 23 kwacha 10. In Kenya, the dollar is trading at 128 shilling 33. In Ethiopia, 155 birr 21. Uganda, 3,517 shilling this afternoon. And in Tanzania, it's at 2,448 shilling. $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,451 naira. In Egypt, the dollar is trading at 47 Egyptian pound 50. Tunisia, 2 dinar 92. In Algeria, it's trading at 129 dinar 25. Morocco, the dollar will cost you 9 dirham 21 this afternoon. In Angola, it's trading at 912 kwanza, while the Congolese franc is trading at 2,221 to the US dollar. Looking at commodities, gold is trading at $4,198 per ounce, platinum $1,675 per ounce, while Brent crude oil is at $62.01 a barrel. That's your indicators. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please do send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or give us a call on +27 11 714 4459. For the Channel Africa Business Desk, I am Buntle Headbush.
Business news. Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
And for the latest from the business of sport, here is Figile Lingwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Thami. We begin with football news in our business of sport. 3 days after helping Inter Miami win its first MLS Cup, Lionel Messi added another milestone to his impressive collection of individual and club honors. Messi was named Major League Soccer's MVP for the 2025 season on the 9th of December. Inter Miami has received $300,000 in prize money, while Vancouver earns $150,000 as runner-up. Inter Miami recently announced the contract extension of Lionel Messi through 2028, securing the Argentine legend's stay in the MLS for at least 3 more seasons. Since arriving in Miami, Messi has transformed the club's fortunes across the board, recording breaking MLS attendances, jersey sales selling out in minutes, and a massive spike in Apple's MLS's season pass subscription. NTS Galaxy chairperson Tim Sugazi has once again taken aim at corporate South Africa, accusing major companies of overlooking the club despite a strong platform. Sugazi singled out FNB, claiming the bank withdrew from football sponsorship after Cape Town City's relegation last season because it was unwilling to partner with a black-owned club. Despite what he views as unfair disadvantage, the Rockets boss insists they will keep pushing forward and building on the progress they've already made.
We can't be shy about it. We have to be vocal. But be that as may, with or without, I think we've illustrated our resilience. With or without, the sponsor, we're going to build, we are on course, on the right path to building one of the best clubs in South Africa. I'm saying that, and I think I'm unequivocally clear. I have no doubt about it. We are on the right path, right course. It shall happen. We are on our way forward. So if you can pinpoint this type of issues, I think it will distinguish you. It will obviously, your work will be.
Sugazi says being a club that sells their best assets to reinvest will keep them afloat. But the quicker way to success is obviously sponsorship.
The model works for us. Our club is going to be strong, no doubt about it. One of the strongest clubs in the league for years to come. That shall happen. But the faster way to get there is when we have financial support. So here you can compare an apple with an apple. Home ground Pumas rugby, home ground Bombela, white sport, white owned. Test Galaxy football, home ground Bombela, black sport, black ownership, black support in the form of supporters. Rugby and white, Christmas tree, all manner of sponsors. Black, none. So, but that doesn't deter us. Our club is strong and it shall be even more stronger.
And in the air in Khale, viewing Gaborone, Botswana sizzled with anticipation as 2024 Paris Olympic champion Letsile Tebogo received the key to a brand new house, a gift befitting his golden performance and celebration of a historic achievement that had put Botswana on the global map. The Minister of Sports, Arts and Culture, Jacob Kelebeheng, handed over the 3-bedroom property valued at $500,000, sitting on a 562 square meter plot. Botswana's Olympic star Letsile Tebogo earned substantial rewards for his 2024 Paris Olympic wins, receiving large cash bonuses, a house, a tractor, and ongoing support from sponsors like Choppies and Orange, alongside government incentives, quickly making him a millionaire through prize money, endorsements, and national gifts, with his net worth estimated at around $2 million by late 2024. And we end with the 2025 edition of the annual Interplast Masters Tennis Competition. The 6th in the series is underway at the Accra Lawn Tennis Club, with highly attractive cash prizes up for grabs. Organized by the Grand Master Tennis Events and sponsored by Interplast Ghana, the tournament will bring together some of the finest tennis talents in the country. Tournament coordinator Peter Anand confirmed that the winner of the men's championship will pocket $1,000, while the women's champion will receive $873. With the competition expected to intensify throughout the week, fans can anticipate thrilling rallies and top-class tennis action at ALTC. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, please send an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us on +2711 714 4459. This is Channel Africa Sport with me, Fikile Ngwati.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Africa in business on on Channel Africa.
It is exactly 37 minutes after 4 p.m. Thank you so much to Figile Lingwati and Buntle Hetbush. We turn our focus to this now. The Global Development Finance Conference Momentum 2025 has kicked off in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The three-day conference, organized by the National Development Fund, will focus on driving the next phase of global development financing. The UN Office for South-South Cooperation says Momentum 2025 reflects the global shift from aid to sustainable finance at a time of shrinking budgets and rising climate, debt and demographic pressures, and that it sets the agenda for how development finance must evolve to build resilience and growth. I spoke to the director of the UN Office for South-South Cooperation, Dima Al-Khatib, and I started by asking her to share some of the objectives of the Global Development Finance Conference Momentum 2025.
Let me take you a little bit a step backward. As you recall, also this year, the Financing for Development Conference took place in Sevilla and came out with a very ambitious agenda calling for different and diversified pool of actors to be engaged in financing for development. And I think the conference today, Momentum, is kind of also taking a little bit those outcomes to the next level and showcasing to the audience how does the financing for development take effect on a more resilient path with different development actors. From what we have seen this morning, there was fantastic examples of engagement with multilateral development banks, with also different private sector entities, but also a showcase on how Saudi Arabia is pursuing its own Vision 2030 with a very efficient engagement and inclusion of the private sector in advancing so many sectors, from energy to addressing climate issues to urbanization and so on and so forth. So it was extremely timely to bring all of these elements together and discussing financing for development in action and how does it take place when you have many diversified actors taking their role, assuming their role and being part of the action.
Now, you mentioned this a little bit, but we know that the world does face a financing gap of trillions for the Sustainable Development Goals. What specific strategies or even commitments will Momentum 2025 be pushing, in order to close this gap?
I mean, I don't think that Momentum is pushing for any specific action. It's just trying to showcase how the engagement of diversified actors, how do you diversify the economy in different countries, taking their own examples. I mean, today we have learned, for example, that Saudi Arabia, an oil-producing country, has shifted also the engagement and the portion of its GDP more than 55% from non-oil sectors. And this is a kind of a showcase to the world and to the different participants that by diversifying the economy, by trying to engage the private sector, by trying to engage the multilateral development banks, by relying more on smart and pertinent artificial intelligence, and by also engaging actors at the local level, a country can definitely pursue the achievements of its goals. We are also at an era, not only that there are, trillions in gap, but also the SDGs are not on track. 35% of the SDGs are only on track, and we have, 5 years for the achievement of the Agenda 2030. And also what is being discussed today is the importance of exchange of experiences. And this is where our mandate as South-South cooperation comes into play. So I think this is the importance and the relevance of this event, that it is really showcasing how in concrete actions and in numbers, evidence-based approach, the path can be changed and can be elevated to be able to achieve the different gaps. And I'm not saying that this is easy for all countries, but at least it is a call for action, for cooperation, and for showcasing of best practices and experiences.
So, in light of the development finance, which is tightening globally, what is it that makes or models platforms like the UN Office for South-South Cooperation promoting to scale up financing for South-South and triangular cooperation initiatives?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Let me give you, very specific examples. A lot of the development challenges nowadays are by definition challenges that call for South-South cooperation because they don't know any geographic boundaries, like climate change, like transboundary water issues, like, some peace and development aspects. So South-South cooperation puts forward a platform. I mean, it has been put forward for the past since the 70s now, but it just calls for more cooperation among countries where not only they have common challenges, but also there is a lot to learn among themselves, and it is a prescriptive and non-conditional cooperation, and it is a demand-driven cooperation that makes sure that every country has something to give and has something to support each other with. We have many examples whereby South-South cooperation has really helped in achieving results. And I think it's a growing trend, especially now that the official development assistance is decreasing. But also in complement to South-South cooperation is triangular cooperation, whereby countries can also benefit from the expertise of other countries who have done that before them, but also the experience of the private sector, the multilateral development banks, and so on. Because these actors, they bring not only finances to the table, they bring a lot of expertise, and they bring a lot of knowledge and innovation, which the world is very much needing at this stage.
That takes us to exactly 4:45 Central African time. Now, financial experts say the joy of festive spending often leads to January's financial woes. They say the festive season can be testing for even the most financially disciplined consumers, and by the time people return to work, many would have spent more than they can afford. Experts say during this kind of emotionally charged spending period, financial discipline is crucial. Ndlandla Mahlangu reports.
With the festive season in high gear and many companies paying out a 13th check or bonus at this time of the year, financial experts say it's important to manage your budget well and even have money left over to help you navigate the long way to January payday. Between year-end functions, Christmas parties, family visits, travels and holidays, expenses can add up quickly. When the reality settles back in after New Year, many families suddenly realize it's only a start of a new school year and the post-holiday blues come with a few new bills. Deshni Naidu, Program Manager for Consumer Education at FNB, says there's no perfect formula for festive spending, but one can set realistic expectations.
I think it's tempting when we get that bonus or that 13th check is to spend it on luxury items or to treat ourselves to something nice for the hard work we've put in all year. And I still think it's important to reward ourselves, but equally important is to ensure that we can try and use it in a bit more of a responsible way. And what I mean by this is that if we have outstanding debt, maybe consider putting away a little bit to paying off that debt. And then putting maybe some aside for savings, and then finally something to reward yourself. I have a colleague who talks about, the 70-20-10 principle, 70% towards paying off expenses and debt, 20% savings if you are over indebted, and then 10% to reward yourself. Alternatively, if you don't have debt, think about putting away for emergency savings and then to cover some of the additional costs you will incur during the festive season.
She says financial literacy must be seen as a life skill.
money makes the world go round, right? Some people say. But money also can make or break us as individuals, as families. It can give us a future or not. And that's why I think it's a critical life skill. It's a life skill because we need to know how to make good decisions for financial resilience and financial well-being. And so it starts with understanding how money works. It starts with understanding, how to spend less than we earn, how to use credit for the right reasons, and how to use it, for developmental reasons, also like for education, and also how to avoid getting into trouble with overspending. And that's why I say financial literacy is a life skill, because it impacts on our livelihood, it impacts on our lives, it impacts on our well-being, and it even impacts on our psychological state.
With some workers receiving a year-end bonus, we took to the streets of Johannesburg to find out how they plan to use it.
Yes, I'm so excited, and the beautiful thing about it is that it came with a letter as a confirmation. When they said on the 20th of this month, your salary will be doubled, I was like, wow. They said it's a 13th check in which the company that I've just joined, in 1 year, 2 months, it's able to give you twice your salary, as they call it, performance-based. So when everyone in the company has performed very well, they normally will do that. So I even signed for it to say, hey, I'm appreciating this. And when people are going to be playing around with their money, some of us will be saving it for January, because January sometimes, because it's crunch times, kids coming back from home in the rural areas, they would be saying, we want this and this. They do this time around, will be like, wow, the beauty of bonuses. I wish other companies can follow suit, to motivate their workers. Things like this, they really motivate us, some of us as workers, knowing very well that the company appreciates whatever that we are doing for them.
No, we don't. The reason that we've been told in the past has always been that the company never has enough money. And KPIs are not properly structured, so you don't actually know whether you have met your quota or not.
Experts say financial stress is one of the biggest contributors to holiday anxiety, but with a clear picture of one's credit standing, it's easier to make smarter decisions and avoid unnecessary debt and set yourself up for a healthier 2026. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Ndlandla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
Are you fluent in French, Chinyanja, Portuguese, and Kiswahili? Are you passionate about radio? And are you looking to work in South Africa? Do you have papers that qualify you to work in South Africa? In that case, we might have an opportunity for you to work for Channel Africa. Send us your CV and demo at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Remember, if you don't hear from us within 14 days, it means you have not made it or you have not been selected. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa in Business. Africa in Business delivers key insights and real-time updates on Africa's growing markets with Thami Ngubeni. The African Perspective on Channel Africa.
Channel Africa. It is exactly 4:51 Central African time. That time of the year has come. Indeed, South Africa is buzzing with activity in stokvels, community-based savings and investment clubs. Recent data from the National Stokvel Association of South Africa, NASASA, shows that there are over 810,000 active stokvels in South Africa, which collect an estimated $2.9 billion. That's around 50 billion rands in savings annually. A few weeks ago, APSA hosted its Stokvel Awards in order to celebrate the role that stokvels play in promoting a culture of saving in communities. For more on this, we joined on the line by Palisa Lingolo, Product Manager at APSA Personal and Private Banking. A very good afternoon to you, Palisa. Good to have you with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Thami. Thank you for having me.
So let's take a look at stokvels and how participation in these evolved in the past few years. Maybe if you could just let us in on that. And if maybe you've seen an increase in the formalization of those structures as far as stokvel groups are concerned.
So stokvels have always been the proudly South African way of saving as a tradition. And for the longest time, for decades, people have been saving for survival and consumer needs, which has been great. Some of us went to school because of such stokvels. But the evolving that we are seeing is we are seeing a lot of stokvels saving for longer term, and saving for investments and saving for to make money, more money out of their stokvel savings. So it's no more about just buying groceries and funerals. We are seeing stokvels doing beyond those things. Wanting to invest in the market, wanting to buy property together for investments. So that is the evolution we are seeing. We're also seeing a lot of young people getting involved and clubbing together for different things like travel, and the middle class in terms of professionals and entrepreneurs also are saving together using the stokvel model for the different economic needs.
And looking at this time of the year specifically, what role do stokvels play in supporting household finances during this time?
So this is most of the time people in stokvels, what they've been doing traditionally is that they save out throughout the year to be able to afford basic needs around this. That is, if you want to buy in bulk so that you don't feel the December costs that tend to go up around the food prices, but also to survive that January pinch that usually comes with people, that you know that your stokvel savings that you got in December, you have that cushion to be able to go through for the rest of January. But mainly around formalization is that what's important is the fact that a lot of stokvels we are seeing and encouraging a lot of stokvels to use bank accounts, especially around this time, while you are not exchanging cash, but rather EFTing to each other to avoid crime and festive crimes, basically.
Now, you as APSA have a very vested interest in stokvels, have supported them for a number of years. And on the 29th of November, not too long ago, you hosted the APSA Stokvel Awards. What is the primary objective of these awards, and why your interest in stokvels?
So, as you mentioned in the beginning, that this is a very big industry. It's a 50 billion industry, and a savings and investment business as part of the bank for financial inclusion and for partnering with the stokvel market to saying, we know you've been saving for years, and if you save with us, we care about you, and we are including you in the banking system by bringing you digital tools in terms of safety of your savings, but also growing your savings in terms of interest, because we have a stokvel specific account, which is the APSA Investment Club account, with very competitive interest rates. And that comes with internet banking to assist with the transparency and safety of digital banking, rather than people exchanging cash, especially around festive, for that safety. Our interest, why we did the APSA Stokvel Awards, was to celebrate this old tradition and also recognize the evolution that they're going through, and enable them by awarding them these awards, which came with 50,000 each category, rewarding stokvels that are really stokveling well in South Africa, and we are rewarding them for savings, and including them in the banking system to show that we're taking them seriously as savers.
Right. So let's break down these different categories that you have, and maybe if you could also just highlight the number of stokvels that entered the awards this year.
So we had over 7,000 nominations as the was our second installment of the awards. Last year, it was the first ever Absa Stokvel Awards, or even Stokvel Awards as it is. There's never been awards for this industry specifically. We have categories that really speak to what stokvels are doing right now, but also very futuristic, where we see stokvels going according to our research. So we've got categories like the best financial literacy stokvel. This is stokvels that really invest in making sure that their members are financial literate. We know how important financial literacy in this industry needs to be, because they are dealing with a lot of money and what to do with that money. So we recognize stokvels that are doing that really well, but we're also recognizing that stokvels that are using digital tools in this day and age to scale and operate their stokvel operations. Hence, we have the best digitally empowered stokvels. Again, this is to inspire and encourage stokvels to embrace technology as an old tradition that they are using, but also evolving with where the world is going and making sure that they are in par with where the world is going. But we also have the typical any other award, Stokvel of the Year. This is the stokvel that really does great things, from their leadership internally to how structured they are, to what they are doing with their savings, how long their savings. So basically that meets a lot of criteria of what a stokvel should look like or aspire to look like. We got a lot of great stories for how stokvels are doing right now, hence that categories. And we had 5 others stokvel categories. Community impact. There's a lot of negative stories about stokvels out there, especially around this time. But we have heard such positive ones also around stokvels that are really doing great things in their communities, like a donation to crashes, helping communities that they operate in. These are the stories that we hardly hear about stokvels, but we hear them through these awards. And hence our slogan for the awards goes with Our Stories Matters. We saying also the stokvel stories, the positive ones, also their story matter.
Certainly. Palisa Lingolo, thank you so much for sharing your story as you share their story too. And looking forward to, what your next session is going to be looking like and the type of evolutions you're going to be seeing. That's Palisa Lingolo, Product Manager at Absa Personal and Private Banking. Thank you for your time, ma'am. She takes us to exactly 5 p.m. Central African time, and that's how we as Africa in Business bid you farewell for today. Thank you to our producer, Mabubu Lok, our technical operator, and Dando Lutuli on social media, Talent Butelezi, and streaming, Botlako Mohope. I'm Thami Ngubeni, and this has been Africa in Business on Channel Africa. Over now to Vue d'Afrique. Restez connected.
No matter where you are, Channel Africa is always with you. Tune in and turn up the volume. This is Channel Africa.
Vue d'Afrique. Un magazine